Many people will say there's no such thing as brakes in boating, but I might argue the point on that one a little bit, but hopefully if you ever need to hit the brakes on the water, you get it done before anything goes wrong, just like some of the things we'll see in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Martin County, Florida, where this was the scene just a few weeks back, when a few local fishermen went out to check their crab traps and all of a sudden wound up getting a little more up close and personal with the water than they bargained for. Local eyewitnesses from the shore said they saw the two fishermen coming down the intercoastal waterway checking their crab traps, but due to the poor conditions at the time, the vessel began taking waves over the gunwale and the bow of the boat and quickly wound up succumbing to the weather conditions. A Good Samaritan wound up calling local emergency services, and the Martin County Sheriff's Office Marine Patrol Unit was the first to arrive on the scene. Upon arrival on the scene, they found two fishermen in the water and the boat completely submerged. Fortunately for the fishermen, the water at the time was fairly shallow where the boat sank, and they were able to actually stand and walk over to the sheriff's boat. Fortunately, in this incident, the sheriff was able to pull them out of the water and no injuries were reported, but the local sheriff's office does remind folks, if the weather's poor, think twice before getting out there on your boat. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to keep us in Florida but take us down to Miami, where this was the scene this past week, when two fishermen decided to go offshore and enjoy a day of fishing out on the water, when all of a sudden, just a few miles outside of Government Cut, their 30-foot fishing boat began to take on water and started to capsize and partially submerge. Fortunately for the two fishermen, there was a Good Samaritan in the area who was out on a charter. The charter wound up coming over, pulling the two men from the water and contacting local emergency services. The U.S. Coast Guard and one of the towboat companies wound up arriving to the scene, but upon arrival, this is what they found. A boat basically 90% submerged, and the two people had already been rescued and pulled from the water. The local towboat company quickly jumped into action with attempting to salvage the vessel. Fortunately, they were able to get it salvaged and brought back to the local boat ramp, which is one of our homes over at the Miami Boat Ramps channel, 79th Street, or also known as Pelican Harbor Boat Ramp. Fortunately, in this situation, no injuries were reported due to the work of the Good Samaritan, who was able to quickly get the two men pulled from the water. At this time, it's still not determined what exactly caused the boat to sink. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to the Netherlands, where this was the scene just a couple weeks ago, when the 442-foot cargo vessel Europa was leaving the Volkerak Lock, when all of a sudden it encountered the 262-foot cargo vessel Nova, as seen in these images here, and the two vessels wind up colliding. Once the captain of the smaller vessel, the Nova, realized a collision was imminent, he actually winds up throwing the boat into reverse. But the collision is so dramatic that it winds up ripping off part of the control tower of the Nova, causing the captain to actually have to abandon ship and jump into the water. The captain of the Nova was somehow reportedly able to gain control and get back on board his vessel, where he was able to hit the emergency stop on the ship's motors, but the momentum of the vessel still caused it to go ahead and back into the riverbank. At the time of the incident, the captain of the Nova was the only person on the bridge, but the captain's wife and child happened to be in the living quarters of the vessel during the incident as well, which happened to take heavy damage during the accident, but fortunately the wife, the child, and the captain all somehow made it out of this without injury. At this time, local authorities have launched an investigation to try and determine the cause of the incident. At the moment, though, the Europa was determined to be leaving the lock and unable to maneuver due to the position it was in, so it makes it sound like the Europa might not be listed with any fault in this incident. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us back stateside and take us up to New York, where this was the scene just about a week ago when a boater was out boating enjoying a day on Great South Bay, when all of a sudden a man was ejected from his vessel and was not wearing the safety kill switch lanyard, causing the wild scene we just witnessed here. According to authorities, the incident occurred near West Islip, and fortunately for the boater, a Good Samaritan from the shore saw the boater out in the water and wound up contacting the local authorities to get rescuers on their way. The Good Samaritan did wind up assisting the boater from the water onto shore, who miraculously got out of this completely uninjured, other than having to be treated for hypothermia from being in the cold water. The boater in this situation was extremely fortunate the Good Samaritan wound up finding him. With the cold water temperatures and cold air temperatures this time of year, this could have been a very different story if that Good Samaritan was not there. And as many would already tell you, if your boat's equipped with a safety kill switch lanyard, just go ahead and put it on. It's for your safety and the others around you. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Humberto Ortiz, Dennis Unitas, and Adam Coolidge did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here.